In this video, I'm gonna cover what is probably the single biggest issue that physical product sellers face, and that is cash flow. People don't like to talk about this. Most of the content in the e-commerce space is just about how big our bank accounts are filling up. And while these businesses can be great, there is a kind of dark side, another side that you really need to understand and be aware of, or it can really put you into a bad place. So in this video, I will explain what cash flow is and why it is so important, so that you have to be really aware of it. And also I'll offer some solutions, some things that you can think about and implement that can fix the problem or even avoid the problem to begin with. And if videos like this one are valuable to you, I'd really appreciate if you can smash the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Drop comments down below. It helps to feed the YouTube algorithm and potentially get this video out to more people. And I do read 100% of them, and I reply to 99.9% of them, and I really appreciate all of them, so don't feel like I'm not even going to see it. So let's just get straight into it. First off, what is cash flow? It's easy to understand if you're selling a product for $20 that costs you $5 and it costs $5 to ship it. It's easy to understand that your profit there would be $10. And let's say you're doing that 10 times per day and you're profiting $100. The way that I think about that in my head and the way that I usually explain it is that is your profit on paper. That is like the real pulse of what's actually happening in your business. And that part is pretty easy to get a grasp on. The problem is that's not giving you a full picture of what's actually going on in your business. And what's actually going on is a lot of cash is leaving your bank account at one time when you place your initial order, when you buy more inventory, when you go to get your second or third or fifth or 100th product. And then for a while you're making sales and the bank account starts to fill up and fill up and fill up. And then you empty it again. And then it fills up and fills up and fills up. And then you empty it again. And that money in, money out flow is cash flow. And while obviously profitability is really important to the longevity of your business, cash flow can absolutely stop you in your tracks, whether the business is going really good or really bad. Because even if you are really profitable and things are going really well, that can be the time where you tie up a lot of cash in inventory because you're needing more and more units in stock. You're trying to launch more and more products and build out your brand, and you start just tying up massive amounts of capital in your inventory. So before you have just heaps and heaps of cash stockpiled in your bank account, what it often really looks like is maybe you place your first order for $5,000 and then you start selling that inventory, but then now you need to order $7,000 of inventory before you've even got back your initial $5,000 or before you've got a full $7,000. And that is how your cash flow can kind of go upside down, even though you might be profitable day to day for the long term. So as you're selling, hopefully profitably, you have to be closely monitoring what is your actual cash in, cash out situation, and will you have the cash on hand to reorder or to grow when the time is right. So now that I've probably sufficiently scared you about how terrifying cash flow can be, let me explain three things actually that can either avoid it from the beginning or make it as best as it possibly can from the beginning or fix it once you're in that situation. So the first thing, and this is crucially important to understand, and the longer that I'm in e-commerce and Amazon and helping a lot of people with it as well, this is just becoming more and more important as things get tighter and more difficult. And this is having a very healthy profit margin. So your profit margin is, of course, out of that $20 sale example, if $10 is your profit, that is a 50% profit margin. And profit is, of course, always important because that's what we're trying to do here with our businesses. But, it's not that. You can imagine in your head having a low profit margin and selling a ton and still doing really well. And businesses do that, and it does work. But here's the thing. It makes cash flow way more difficult because you have to think about your actual ROI on the products that you are selling for a profit. For example, if you're selling a product that profits you $5, let's say that product costs you, $2 to produce versus $20 to produce. Well, now your profit margin is way different, and the amount of cash that you're tying up in that inventory that is selling for that amount of profit is completely different. And it's going to take you so much more of that inventory to sell through until you have the actual cash back to invest in more. So having a low profit margin compounds the cash flow issue. And if you had an absurdly, amazingly high profit margin, then it can pretty much wipe out all your potential cash flow problems. Like hypothetically, imagine this. Imagine you could source a product for $1 and sell it for $100. Well, then you can quickly see that you don't have to sell many units to have more cash than it requires to just buy a whole ton more inventory. Every one product sale would buy you 99 more to stock in inventory. Obviously that's not realistic, but that gives you an example of how the higher the profit margin, the more it proportionally fixes your cash flow problems. And the same goes for the opposite. If you were making $1 on a $100 product, then it would take you just so you can see how you could tie up a massive amount of cash in your inventory. The second thing to seriously think about, and it has always blown my mind that this doesn't get talked about more, and it also answers the question that I get all the time, which is how much inventory do I need to order for my first order? And this answers both, and that is, what is the lead time for your products? And what lead time is from the time you place your order with your manufacturer or supplier. How much time is there from that day until your products are in your warehouses ready to sell, at Amazon ready to sell? And this dramatically affects your cash flow and how much inventory you have to have on hand, because everybody always explains this as if it's just one variable in the equation. How fast is the product selling and how many units do you expect to sell, say, per month? And most people will just tell you something like, oh, you need exactly 3 months and 2 days and 6 hours of inventory in stock. But what they're not realizing is it's actually A times B equals C, and not just a one variable thing. And the other variable in this equation is your lead time. So it's not just how many units do you expect to sell per month, but also how fast can you actually get those units in. And this becomes immensely clear if I give another hypothetical, absurd, unrealistic example. But first off, imagine you could literally restock your inventory immediately, same day. Well, how much inventory do you really need to have on hand now? You don't need to have 3 months of inventory on hand if you could literally snap your fingers and go from 3 units left in stock back to 3,000 or whatever. Not a real example, but it shows you how these things play together, how fast you're selling versus what is your lead time. And an absurd example in the other direction, what if your product took you a year to restock? Well, now you're going to need a year of runway, a year of inventory in stock and ready to sell, or else you're going to run out, obviously. So thinking about what your lead times are, or trying to get your lead times shorter, can help your cash flow at any point in your business. And in theory, short lead times are obviously going to tie up less cash at a time. And that's not to say that longer lead times are impossible, but you need to factor that into the equation. Is longer lead times are going to have a bigger cash flow crunch, especially at first, until you've sold through a few rounds and you're starting to pile up cash. So those first 2 points can definitely help you avoid the cash flow crunch as much as possible. It's still always an issue, but those things can set you up to have a little bit less of an issue. Now, the third thing is something that is a remedy to the cash flow situation. And this is to get outside funding. And now definitely don't do this at the very beginning. You have to be, I would only even consider this if you're already up and running, things are already going well, they're already proven, and now you just want to fuel the fire or let things go on their own so that there is a surplus of cash and you potentially start paying yourself and things like that. So you might be of the school of thought right now that you should never take on loans or any outside funding. And that's exactly what I'm advising is potentially a good idea here. Now, I want to be very clear. I definitely would never and don't suggest, if you have $0 right now, to take out a $10,000 loan to start your Amazon FBA e-commerce business. That is not advisable. I would say build up capital however you can, give it a real launch, get things going, and then later on, maybe 6, 12, 18 months into the business, then take on some outside capital. And if you think this sounds like an absolutely insane idea, think about this. Let's say your ROI in your business is 2 to 1, meaning for every dollar you put in, you get $2 back. Now, let's say you have a loan that is a 10% interest rate. It's not that big of a deal. It's not going to hurt you. And in fact, it's actually going to make you a lot more money, right? Because now you have $100,000 of capital that you can put into your 2 to 1 machine and only pay a 10% penalty on the 100K. So 90K that you didn't have, right? And this is much, much more common than you think. I've taken out big loans for inventory. Sellers that are much, much more high level than I have this problem even more and take out millions of dollars of loans to fund their inventory. It's very, very common for physical products companies to fund their inventory on debt. And there's several places to look for this. Obviously, starting out, you'll probably have a credit card. Now, credit card percentages are obviously the highest out of any of these, but it can still help your cash flow by 30 days or so to not pay stuff so soon. So right there, you're potentially helping your cash flow situation a bit. And as far as real loans, the absolute best one for Amazon sellers is always going to be Amazon Lending, which comes directly through Amazon. They are looking at exactly what your account is producing and selling and the numbers, and they're giving you a loan based on that. And it really ties you in, and then you pay directly out of your account balance. So it's all very integrated. And a lot of people also feel like Amazon might be less likely to say ban you if you have a loan and inventory and all of that. You kind of have a link with them now. The next thing I'd consider after that is AMZ Lenders. This is actually run by a friend of mine. He's a great entrepreneur, and you can email steve@amzlenders.com and see if you're a fit, but don't email him and waste his time if you're not already up and selling and all of that. Then another resource is Kabbage with a K. They are just a small business lender. It's very easy to use. There are other alternatives like them. They're a little bit higher, but it still can be good for just really easy access, quick cash for those crunch times, like say Q4, when you just need that little bit of carryover. It's not the worst thing. And then what is the worst thing is these services like Payability, and I haven't looked into it that much, so I don't want to throw too much shade on them, but from the little bit that I have learned, it just seems like a crazy interest rate. So I wouldn't do any of those types of services. So again, cash flow really is one of the biggest problems you could ever face in your physical products business. So I hope this video, made you aware of the scariness and aware of the problems, but then also hopefully gave you some potential things to think about to mitigate those problems and solve them if you find yourself in those situations. If this video is valuable, be sure to smash the like button, drop comments, subscribe to this channel if you have not already, hit that notification bell so you can know when I post. You can also follow me on Instagram @MattLoberstein, and there's a free Facebook group in the description for entrepreneurs, as well as links to a bunch of resources and software that I use in my business. And there's also the Zero to Brand program for anybody looking to launch their brand on Amazon and beyond. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and see you next time.